Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it, then let's evaluate together. The grand ballroom of the Drake Hotel in Chicago's Gold Coast shimmered like a jewel box, its chandeliers casting prisms of light across silk gowns and tailored tuxedos. The air hummed with the clink of champagne flutes, the murmur of high-stakes deals, and the occasional laugh from the city's elite. Politicians, tech moguls, philanthropists who tossed around millions like loose change. Nia Carter stood near a marble pillar, her emerald green gown hugging her curves, her natural curls swept into an elegant updo that caught the light. She didn't belong in this world of inherited wealth and whispered power. She was a doctor, not a socialite, here only because Ethan Brooks, the man she loved, had asked her to come. But as the weight of 100 gazes pressed against her, she felt like a gazelle in a room full of lions. Her heart thudded as she scanned the crowd. Ethan stood near the stage, his black tuxedo accentuating his broad shoulders, his dark hair slightly tousled despite the formal setting. His blue eyes, sharp and warm, flicked to her, a silent anchor in the chaos. For a moment, she forgot the whispers, the sidelong glances, the way some guests lingered on her brown skin and murmured words like unexpected or interesting choice. Ethan's smile, small but real, reminded her why she was here. But the moment shattered when the giant screen behind the stage flickered to life. A video began, and Nia's stomach plummeted. It was her and Ethan at his Michigan lakehouse last month. The footage showed them on the porch, moonlight painting their silhouettes. His lips brushed her neck. Her hands clung to his shoulders, her laughter soft as they swayed to music only they heard. The camera zoomed in, catching every intimate detail, then cut to another scene. Inside the house, her fingers tracing his jaw, his hands pulling her close. The clips were stitched together to look calculated, predatory, like she'd orchestrated every touch to trap a billionaire. Gasps rippled through the room, followed by a low buzz of whispers. "Is that the doctor?" someone hissed. "Brooks and her? Really?" another sneered. Nia's face burned, her pulse hammering. She caught Eleanor Brooks's eye. Ethan's mother, a vision in sapphire silk, her silver hair swept into a regal chignon. Eleanor's lips curved into a smirk, her gray eyes glinting with triumph. Beside her stood Vanessa Holt, a sleek brunette in a gold gown, her smile sharp as a blade. Nia knew instantly. They'd done this. They'd turned her private moments into a public execution, a warning to a black woman who dared to love beyond her place. The auctioneer faltered, his gavel hovering, but before he could pivot, Nia felt a fire ignite inside her. She wasn't going to let them win, not Eleanor, not Vanessa, not this room of strangers who saw her as a headline instead of a person. She strode toward the stage, her heels clicking against the polished floor, each step a defiance. The crowd parted, their whispers trailing like smoke. She climbed the steps, took the microphone from the stunned auctioneer, and faced the sea of faces, her chin high, her voice steady. "My name is Nia Carter," she began, her words cutting through the murmurs. "I'm a doctor, not a gold digger, not a scandal, and definitely not here for your approval. I grew up in Detroit, where my parents taught me to fight for what matters, people, not power, not, I've spent my life saving lives, building a dream to serve my community, and I don't need a penthouse to know my worth." Her eyes found Ethan's, and his unwavering gaze gave her strength. "I love Ethan Brooks, not because of his bank account or his name, but because he sees me, really sees me. You can twist our story, edit your videos, write your headlines, but you can't take away the truth. I'm here because I choose to be, and I'm not going anywhere." The room was silent, every eye on her. She could feel the weight of their judgment, but also a shift. Some nodded, others shifted uncomfortably, a few clapped. Nia's hands trembled, but she held the microphone tighter. So go ahead, keep whispering. But know this, I'm not just a guest in your world. I'm building my own, and Ethan's standing with me. Applause broke out, tentative at first, then swelling. Nia's knees wobbled, but before she could step down, Ethan was there, climbing the stage in 3 long strides. His eyes locked on hers, fierce and unguarded. "Nia," he said, his voice low but carrying through the speakers. "You're not just my partner. You're my home, my heart, the woman who makes me better every damn day." He took her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles, sending a spark through her. "Marry me, Nia. Be my wife. My everything." Gasps echoed, but the cheers drowned them out. Nia's breath caught, tears pricking her eyes. She looked at him, his messy hair, his earnest smile, the man who'd fought to earn her trust, and nodded. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes, Ethan." He pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that felt like a vow, warm and sure under the blinding lights. The crowd roared, but Nia barely heard it, lost in the heat of his embrace, the promise of their future. But as they pulled apart, she caught Eleanor's silhouette slipping out the door, her sapphire dress a warning of battles to come. Vanessa's cold stare lingered, a promise of more schemes. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a fight neither of them could avoid. 6 months earlier. Nia Carter slumped in a worn armchair in her South Side apartment, the glow of her laptop casting shadows across the cluttered room. Medical journals were stacked on the coffee table, their pages dog-eared from late-night study sessions. A half-dead fern drooped in the corner, a victim of her 36-hour hospital shifts. The screen displayed an email from her loan officer, the words "payment overdue" glaring in bold. 4 years of med school, $150,000 in debt, and here she was, scraping by on instant noodles and stubborn hope. Her dream, a community clinic for Southside's underserved, was a blueprint on her desk, mocked by every rejection from grant committees. Her phone buzzed, and her mom's name lit up. Nia forced a smile before answering. "Hey, Mama." "Nia, baby, you eating okay?" Her mom's voice carried the same warmth it always had, the kind that made Nia feel like a kid again, safe in their Detroit kitchen. "I'm good," Nia lied, her eyes on the empty fridge across the room. "Just busy saving the world, you know." Her mom laughed, but the worry lingered. "We're proud of you, girl. Don't work too hard." Nia hung up, her throat tight. The truth was uglier. Her bank account was a ghost town. Her dad's heart medication cost a fortune, and her sister Amara needed help with law school tuition. In the Carter family, they carried each other, no matter the cost. But Nia was drowning. A red-stamped hospital bill sat on the counter, its numbers a silent threat. She was calculating how many shifts she'd need to cover it when her phone pinged. A text from Lila, her best friend since college. "You look like death. Meet me at Haven. Coffee's on me." Nia sighed, tempted to say no, but Lila's persistence was a force of nature. She pulled on a raincoat over her scrubs, grabbed her umbrella, and headed out into the Chicago drizzle. Haven was a cozy nook in Wicker Park, its mismatched chairs and book-lined walls a refuge from the city's grind. The smell of fresh coffee and old paper hit Nia as she stepped inside, shaking rain from her curls. Lila waved from the counter, chatting with the barista like they were cousins. "Took you long enough," Lila teased, sliding a latte across the table. "You're gonna burn out, Dr. Carter." "Burnout's for quitters," Nia shot back, sipping the latte, its warmth easing the knot in her chest. They talked about Lila's latest investigative piece, Amara's law school drama, anything but Nia's crumbling finances. Then the power flickered, plunging the cafe into semi-darkness. Groans filled the room, but Nia just laughed, pulling a tiny reading light from her bag. Always prepared, she said, clipping it to her journal. A guy at the next table looked up, his face half hidden under a baseball cap, his hoodie worn but clean. "Mind sharing the light?" he asked, his voice low, a hint of a smile in it. Nia shrugged, sliding her chair closer. "Only if you're not a serial killer," she quipped, catching his grin. "I'm Evan," he said, extending a hand. His grip was warm, his blue eyes sharp but kind. "Just a tech guy who forgot his flashlight." "Nia," she replied, her guard easing. "Doctor, not a flashlight supplier, but I'll make an exception." They fell into easy conversation, trading thoughts on Octavia Butler's novels and the best dive bars in Chicago. He was vague about his job. "I work on software. Nothing sexy." But she didn't press, drawn to his quick wit and the way he listened, really listened, when she talked about her clinic dream. When the lights came back on, she scribbled her number on a napkin, sliding it across the table. "This was fun, Evan. Maybe I'll catch you here again." He smiled, tucking the napkin into his pocket like it was gold. "Count on it, Nia." As she left, the rain had stopped, and Chicago felt a little less heavy. She didn't know Evan was Ethan Brooks, the billionaire whose name topped Forbes lists, whose company powered her hospital's communication app. To her, he was just a guy with a good laugh and a knack for quoting obscure sci-fi. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough. If Nia and Ethan's story has you hooked, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. What do you think Nia's up against in Ethan's glittering, ruthless world? Will their love survive the secrets and schemes? Join us to find out, and let's keep this journey going together. Nia Carter's life had always been a balancing act. Long shifts at Mercy Hospital in Chicago's South Side, late-night study sessions for her board certification, and the ever-present dream of her community clinic, sketched out on crumpled graph paper in her apartment. But in the 3 weeks since meeting Evan at Haven, the cozy Wicker Park Cafe, something new had crept into her routine. A spark, a possibility she hadn't dared name. He was just a tech guy, he'd said, with a quick grin and eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully built walls. And yet, every time her phone buzzed with his name, her heart did a little flip, like she was a teenager sneaking texts in homeroom. Their first date wasn't a date, not really. Just coffee at Haven the following Saturday, where they argued over the best sci-fi novels and split a too-dry scone. Evan wore the same faded hoodie, his baseball cap pulled low, and Nia teased him about looking like he'd just rolled out of bed. "Hey, this is high fashion in my world," he'd shot back, his laugh low and warm, making her stomach flutter. They talked for hours, the cafe's hum fading until it was just them, two people trading stories like they'd known each other forever. Nia told him about growing up in Detroit, her parents' endless lessons on grit and giving back. He shared bits of his life, vague mentions of coding late nights, a love for jazz piano he rarely indulged. She didn't press for details, content with the ease of it, the way he made her feel seen without trying. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a rhythm. Coffee turned into walks through Humboldt Park, where they dodged skateboarders and debated Chicago's best deep dish pizza. One night, they ended up at a taco truck on Division Street, Nia laughing as sauce dripped down Evan's chin. "You're a mess," she said, handing him a napkin, their fingers brushing just long enough to send a spark through her. His eyes held hers, a question in them, but she looked away, her cheeks warm. She wasn't ready to name this feeling, not when her life was already a tightrope of work and worry. Still, Evan was persistent in the best way. He'd text her silly memes during her breaks, or drop off a coffee at the hospital with a post-it note, "Don't let the ER win, Doc." He never pushed, never made her feel like she owed him her time, and that made her want to give it more. Lila, her best friend, noticed the change. "You're glowing, girl," Lila said over wine at Nia's apartment, her journalist's eyes narrowing. This Evan guy's got you smiling like a fool. But you've never seen his place, met his friends. What's his deal?" Nia shrugged, sipping her Merlot. "He's private. So am I. We're just figuring it out." But Lila's words lingered, a tiny seed of doubt. Evan was easy to talk to, but there were gaps, questions he sidestepped, plans he kept vague. She pushed it down, telling herself it was too early to overthink. For now, he was Evan, the guy who quoted Octavia Butler and made her laugh when the world felt too heavy. That was enough. The hospital was Nia's battlefield, a place of controlled chaos where she thrived and broke in equal measure. Her shifts were marathons, 12 hours, sometimes 36, stitching wounds, calming panicked families, navigating the subtle slights from colleagues like Dr. Julian Reed, who'd once joked she'd only gotten her residency because of diversity quotas. She'd smiled, her jaw tight, and outworked him ever since, but the sting never fully faded. Southside's patients trusted her, though. Moms with sick kids, elders with no insurance, people who saw her as one of their own. That trust kept her going, even when her body screamed for rest. One Tuesday, after a grueling 36-hour shift, Nia was a wreck. A car accident had flooded the ER with trauma cases, and she'd lost a patient, a young man whose mother's wails still echoed in her head. She stumbled into the staff lounge, her scrubs wrinkled, her curls escaping their bun. The fluorescent lights buzzed, the air thick with stale coffee and antiseptic. She sank onto a lumpy couch, her eyes burning, too wired to sleep but too exhausted to move. Her phone buzzed. Lila, checking in. "You alive?" Nia typed back. "Barely. Pray for me." She didn't expect a reply, didn't expect anything but the quiet hum of the hospital. Then the door creaked open, and Evan stood there, a wool coat over his usual hoodie, a paper bag in one hand and a blanket slung over his shoulder. His cap was gone, his dark hair messy, his blue eyes soft with concern. "Heard you had a rough one," he said, his voice low, like he was afraid to break the silence. "Thought you could use some backup." Nia blinked, her brain sluggish. "How'd you get in here? This is staff only." He grinned, setting the bag on the table. "I'm charming. Also, I bribed the security guy with donuts." He pulled out a thermos of coffee and a Tupperware of homemade soup, the smell of rosemary and chicken filling the room. "Figured you haven't eaten since yesterday." Her throat tightened, not from hunger but from the gesture. No one had ever just shown up like this, not since her mom used to bring her snacks during college finals. "You didn't have to," she said, her voice rough. "I wanted to," he replied, draping the blanket over her shoulders. His fingers brushed her arm, a fleeting touch that sent a shiver through her, warm and electric. He sat beside her, close enough that their knees almost touched, the couch sagging under his weight. "Rough day?" She nodded, staring at the thermos to avoid his eyes. "Lost someone. It never gets easier." Her voice cracked and she hated it, hated how raw she felt. But Evan didn't flinch, didn't offer empty platitudes. He just listened, his presence steady, like an anchor in a storm. "Tell me about it," he said softly. "If you want." And she did. The words spilled out. The chaos of the ER, the mother's screams, the guilt that clung like damp clothes. She told him about her clinic dream, how every loss made it feel more urgent, how she was terrified she'd fail. He listened, his eyes never leaving her face, and when she faltered, he took her hand, his thumb tracing slow circles on her palm. The touch was gentle but deliberate, a spark that made her breath hitch. "You're not failing, Nia," he said, his voice fierce. "You're fighting. That's more than most people ever do." Her heart pounded, caught between gratitude and something deeper, something dangerous. She looked at him, really looked. His messy hair, the faint stubble on his jaw, the way his eyes held hers like she was the only person in the world. "Why are you here, Evan?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm a mess right now." He leaned closer, his hand still holding hers, his warmth seeping into her. "Because you're real," he said, his voice low, almost a confession. "And I don't know how to stay away from that." His other hand brushed her cheek, tucking a stray curl behind her ear, and the air between them thickened, charged with unspoken want. Her skin tingled where his fingers lingered, and she felt the pull, the urge to close the distance, to let his lips find hers. But she laughed, a shaky sound, pulling back just enough to break the spell. "You're trouble, you know that?" she said, her voice teasing to mask the heat in her cheeks. "I don't kiss random tech guys in hospital break rooms." He grinned, unfazed. "Not random. And I'll wait." His eyes held a promise, one that made her stomach flutter and her resolve waver. They ate the soup in comfortable silence, the blanket draped over them both, and for the first time all day, Nia felt like she could breathe. As he left, promising to text her tomorrow, she watched him go, his silhouette disappearing down the hall. The lounge felt emptier without him, but her heart was fuller, heavier with something she wasn't ready to name. She folded the blanket, tucking it under her arm, a reminder of a man who'd seen her at her lowest, and stayed anyway. The next morning, Nia was back at the hospital, her shift lighter, but her mind still on Evan. She was charting patient notes when Lila called, her voice urgent. "You free for lunch? I've got questions about your mystery man." Nia agreed, but Lila's tone planted another seed of doubt. Evan was private, sure, but was he hiding something? She pushed it down, focusing on her patients, but the question lingered. That afternoon, as she grabbed coffee in the hospital cafeteria, a sleek black car pulled up outside the entrance. A woman stepped out, her silver hair gleaming, her navy coat screaming money. Nia didn't know Eleanor Brooks, but the woman's sharp gaze locked on the hospital doors like she was hunting something, or someone. Nia's stomach twisted, a premonition she couldn't shake. Later, when she checked her phone, there was a text from Evan. "Dinner tomorrow? I owe you for stealing your blanket." She smiled, typing back a quick "deal." But as she headed to her next patient, the image of the woman in the navy coat stayed with her, a shadow creeping into the light Evan had brought. She didn't know it yet, but the world she'd stepped into with him was bigger, sharper, and far less forgiving than she'd imagined. Nia Carter's world had always been grounded in the tangible: blood pressure readings, patient charts, the steady beep of monitors in Mercy Hospital's ER. But in the past month, Ethan Brooks, or Evan as she still thought of him, had slipped into her life like a melody she couldn't stop humming. Their evenings together felt like stolen moments, carved out between her grueling shifts and his vague tech meetings. They'd wander Chicago's streets, sharing greasy fries at dive bars or debating poetry in the glow of streetlights. He'd become her soft place to land, the one person who didn't expect her to be Dr. Carter, savior of South Side. And yet, a quiet doubt lingered, fed by Lila's warnings and the gaps in Evan's story. His reluctance to talk about his past, the way he always paid in cash, the apartment she'd never seen. Still, Nia let herself fall, just a little. Evan had a way of making the world feel smaller, safer. He'd show up at her apartment with takeout after her shifts, sprawled on her thrift store couch, reading her medical journals with a furrowed brow that made her laugh. "You're going to give yourself a headache," she'd tease, snatching the book away. He'd grin, pulling her onto his lap, his hands warm on her waist. And for a moment, the weight of her loans, her clinic dream, her patients' lives would lift. Those moments were dangerous, though. His touch, his low laugh, the way his eyes lingered on her lips. She'd pull back, keeping the line clear, but the line was blurring and she wasn't sure she wanted to redraw it. One Friday night, Evan texted her, "Got a surprise. Meet me at Blue Note, 8 p.m. Dress nice." Nia raised an eyebrow. Blue Note was a jazz club in Logan Square, intimate and off the radar, not his usual low-key haunts. She hesitated, her closet a sea of scrubs and jeans. But Lila, ever the enabler, loaned her a black dress, sleeveless and fitted, that hugged her curves like a second skin. "If he doesn't lose his mind seeing you in this, he's not human," Lila said, smirking. Nia rolled her eyes, but felt a thrill as she slipped on the dress, her curls loose, a touch of red lipstick bright against her brown skin. Blue Note was a cocoon of dim lights and velvet curtains, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the wail of a saxophone. Nia spotted Evan near the bar, his usual hoodie traded for a navy blazer, his dark hair catching the light. He turned and his eyes widened, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Damn, Nia," he said, his voice low. "You're gonna stop traffic in that dress." Her cheeks warmed, but she tossed back. "Keep up, tech boy. I don't wait for slowpokes." They found a table near the stage, the music wrapping around them like a warm blanket. The band played a slow, sultry tune, and Evan leaned closer, his knee brushing hers under the table. "Dance with me," he said, not a question, his hand extended. She hesitated, her heart pounding, but his eyes held a challenge she couldn't resist. "Fine," she said, letting him lead her to the small dance floor. His hand settled on her lower back, warm through the thin fabric of her dress, and she felt every point of contact, his fingers grazing her spine, her palm against his shoulder, their bodies swaying in sync. The world faded, the music a pulse that matched her heartbeat. "You're trouble, Evan," she murmured, her lips close to his ear, her breath catching as his hand tightened on her waist. "Only the good kind," he replied, his voice rough, his eyes dark with something that made her skin tingle. He tilted her chin up, and before she could think, his lips found hers, slow and deliberate, a kiss that felt like a confession. Her hand slid to his neck, fingers tangling in his hair, and the kiss deepened, hungry and unhurried, the jazz fading to a distant hum. His lips were warm, tasting faintly of whiskey, and she pressed closer, lost in the heat of him, the way his body fit against hers like it was made to. They pulled apart, breathless, foreheads touching. "Told you I'd wait," he whispered, his thumb brushing her cheek, a spark that made her want to dive back in. She laughed, shaky, and stepped back, her heart racing. "You're gonna ruin me," she said, half joking, but the words felt too true. They returned to their table, the air between them charged, but the moment shattered when a voice boomed across the room. "Ethan Brooks! Hell, I almost didn't recognize you without the Forbes cover." A man in a pinstripe suit, Gregory Lang, a venture capitalist Nia vaguely recognized from hospital fundraisers, stood at their table, his grin wide and oblivious. "That Singapore deal? Genius. Q4 is going to be a bloodbath for your competitors." Nia froze, the name Ethan Brooks echoing in her head. She looked at Evan. No, Ethan, his face pale, his jaw tight. "Gregory," he said, his voice clipped. "I'm off the clock. Good to see you." But Gregory kept going, oblivious. "And that time profile? America's Tech King? Spot on. You're killing it, man." The room spun, Nia's pulse hammering. She stood, her chair scraping, and excused herself, her voice flat. "I need air." She pushed through the crowd, her dress suddenly too tight, her mind racing. Ethan Brooks, CEO of Nexus Innovations, billionaire. The man whose company powered her hospital's app, whose face she'd seen on magazine racks. And she'd been kissing him, thinking he was just Evan, a tech guy with a knack for jazz. Outside, the Chicago night was cool, the streetlights blurring through her tears. She pulled out her phone, her fingers shaking as she searched his name. The results flooded in. Ethan Brooks, 8.5 billion net worth. Tech's most eligible bachelor. Photos of him in suits, at galas, with models and heiresses. 3 months, and he'd let her believe a lie. Her chest ached, betrayal sharp as a blade. Ethan followed her out, his blazer gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up. "Nia, please," he said, his voice desperate. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" she snapped, turning to face him, her eyes blazing. "That you're Ethan Brooks, billionaire. That you've been playing me for 3 months, letting me think you were some regular guy. What was this, a game? A little vacation from your penthouse life?" "No," he said, stepping closer, his hands raised like he could hold back her anger. "It wasn't a game. I'm still me, Nia, the guy who loves your laugh, who brings you soup, who can't stop thinking about you. The money, the company, that's not who I am with you." "Then why lie?" Her voice broke, tears spilling over. "I told you everything, my family, my struggles, my dreams. And you gave me what? A fake name? A half-truth?" She laughed, bitter, wiping her face. "I trusted you, Ethan. I let you in, and you made a fool of me." He flinched, pain flashing in his eyes. "I was scared," he said, his voice raw. "Every time someone knows who I am, they change. They want pieces of me, my money, my name, my power. With you, I was just me. For the first time in years, I felt real. I didn't want to lose that." Her heart twisted, but anger burned hotter. "You don't get to decide what I can handle," she said, stepping back. "I deserve the truth, not your curated version of it. I'm done." She turned, walking into the night, her heels clicking against the pavement, his voice calling after her but fading as she rounded the corner. The jazz club's music lingered, a cruel echo of the kiss that had felt so right and now tasted like betrayal. Back at her apartment, Nia sat on her couch, the black dress crumpled on the floor, her phone buzzing with texts from Ethan. "Please, Nia, just talk to me. I'm sorry. I'll do anything to fix this." She silenced it, her chest tight. Lila came over, bringing wine and fury. "He's a liar, Nia," Lila said, pacing. "Rich guy playing at being normal? Classic. You're better than that." But Nia wasn't so sure. She thought of Ethan's hand on hers in the hospital lounge, the way he'd listened when she poured out her grief. Was that a lie, too? She didn't know, and that uncertainty hurt worse than the betrayal. The next morning, the world piled on. At the hospital, Dr. Julian Reed cornered her in the break room, his smirk sharp. "Heard you're dating a billionaire, Carter. Nice move. Bet that clinic of yours is fully funded now." His words were a jab, and Nia's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice even. "Mind your own business, Julian." He walked away, but his whisper to another doctor, "She's playing the long game," followed her. By noon, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Tech titan Ethan Brooks spotted with mystery woman. The article featured a blurry photo of them at Blue Note, her face half visible but unmistakable. "Is the doctor after his heart or his fortune?" the headline sneered. Nia's stomach churned, shame and anger warring inside her. Her mom called, worried. "Nia, what's going on? This man, is he good to you?" Amara texted, blunt as ever. "Sis, you okay? This dude sounds shady." Nia didn't reply, her hands shaking. She sat at her desk, a grant application for her clinic staring back, the dream she'd poured her life into. She'd let Ethan in, let him see her hopes, her fears, and now her name was a punchline. Part of her wanted to call him, to hear his explanation, to believe the man who'd kissed her like she was his whole world. But another part, the part forged in Detroit, in med school, in a world that judged her before she spoke, told her to walk away. As she headed to her shift, her phone buzzed again. Another text from Ethan. "I'm not giving up, Nia. You're worth fighting for." She deleted it, but the words lingered, a crack in her resolve. The truth was out, but the fight was just beginning, and Nia wasn't sure she had the strength to face it. Nia Carter had always trusted her instincts. They'd guided her through med school, through chaotic ER shifts, through a life where being a black woman meant proving herself twice over. But Ethan Brooks had shaken that trust, his lie about being Evan cutting deeper than she'd expected. 2 weeks after the jazz club fallout, Nia's world felt unsteady. The tabloid article, Tech Titan's Mystery Woman, had turned her life into a fishbowl. Nurses whispered in the hospital halls. Patients asked if she was that doctor from the news, and Dr. Julian Reed's smirks grew sharper, his comments laced with venom. "Guess you're too busy with your billionaire to focus on patients, Carter." Nia kept her head high, her responses clipped, but the weight of it all, her clinic dream, her family's worry, her own bruised heart, was crushing her. Ethan hadn't stopped trying. His texts came daily, not pushy, but persistent. "I messed up, Nia. Can we talk? I miss you. Even the way you call me out." She'd ignored them, deleting each one, but his words lingered, tugging at the part of her that remembered his soup in the hospital lounge, his kiss under the jazz club's lights. Lila, ever the skeptic, urged her to move on. "He lied, Nia. Rich guys don't change." But Amara, her sister, was softer. "He sounds sorry, sis. Maybe hear him out?" Nia didn't know what to believe, but the ache in her chest wasn't fading. Then, one evening, Ethan showed up at her apartment, his usual hoodie replaced by a tailored coat, his blue eyes earnest under the hallway's flickering light. "5 minutes," he said, hands in his pockets, like he was bracing for rejection. "That's all I'm asking." Nia's first instinct was to slam the door, but something in his voice, raw, almost broken, stopped her. She let him in, arms crossed, her small living room feeling smaller with him in it. "I'm not here to make excuses," he said, standing by her bookshelf, his fingers grazing a worn copy of Kindred. "I lied about who I am, and I hurt you. But every moment with you, the coffee, the jazz, the way you make me laugh, that was real. I'm Ethan Brooks, yeah, but I'm also the guy who's falling for you, Nia. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try." He pulled out a key, setting it on her coffee table. "My lakehouse in Michigan. Come for the weekend. Bring Amara if you don't trust me. Just give me a chance to show you who I really am." Nia stared at the key, her heart warring with her head. Lila's warnings echoed, but so did Amara's advice, and the truth was, she missed him, missed the ease, the warmth, the way he saw her. "I'll think about it," she said finally, her voice cool. He nodded, leaving without pushing, and as the door closed, she picked up the key, its weight heavier than metal. The Michigan lake house was nothing like Nia expected. Tucked along Lake Michigan's shore, it was a cedar and glass retreat, modern but warm, with a wraparound porch and a dock stretching into the water. The air smelled of pine and possibility, the lake's surface glittering under a late summer sun. Nia had brought Amara, partly for safety, partly because her sister's blunt honesty would keep her grounded. Amara, in ripped jeans and a law school sweatshirt, eyed the house like it was a trap. "This dude's loaded," she muttered, hauling her duffel bag. "You sure about this, sis?" "No," Nia admitted, her sundress fluttering in the breeze. "But I need answers." Ethan greeted them at the door, his t-shirt and jeans a far cry from his CEO persona, his smile cautious but genuine. "Thanks for coming," he said, his eyes on Nia, a flicker of hope in them. Amara snorted, brushing past him. Don't screw this up, rich boy. The weekend was a careful dance. Ethan kept his distance, giving Nia space, but his presence was everywhere, cooking breakfast with Amara, teaching them to play chess on the porch, sharing stories about his childhood in a Chicago suburb, before Nexus made him a household name. Nia watched him, searching for the lie, but all she saw was the man who'd sat with her in the hospital, who'd kissed her like she was his world. Amara warmed to him, too, her skepticism softening when he helped her prep for a mock trial, his patience winning her over. On Saturday night, after Amara went to bed, Nia and Ethan found themselves in the basement, fixing a flickering fireplace. The space was cramped, the air cool and earthy, a single bulb casting shadows on the stone walls. Nia held a flashlight, her tank top damp with sweat, her curls tied back with a scarf. Ethan knelt by the gas line, his flannel shirt rolled up, his forearms smudged with soot. "You're terrible at this," she teased, her voice lighter than it had been in weeks, the tension easing. "Says the doctor who can't aim a flashlight," he shot back, grinning. Their laughter faded as he stood, closer now, his body heat mingling with hers in the tight space. A spark popped from the fireplace, and Nia flinched, water from a nearby bucket splashing her shirt. The fabric clung to her curves, and Ethan's eyes darkened, his gaze tracing the lines of her body before snapping back to her face. "Sorry," he murmured, but his voice was rough, laced with want. "Don't be," she said, her own voice unsteady, the flashlight trembling in her hand. He stepped closer, his fingers brushing her arm, a touch that sent fire through her veins. "Nia," he said, his voice low. "I don't deserve you, but I can't stop wanting you. Tell me to back off, and I will." She should have said it, should have walked away, but her body had other ideas, her heart pounding as she closed the distance. "Don't," she whispered, and his lips crashed into hers, hungry and desperate, a kiss that tasted of apologies and promises. His hand slid to her waist, pulling her against him, her fingers tangling in his hair as the world dissolved. The kiss was a storm, his mouth hot, her body arching into his, the damp fabric of her shirt no barrier to the heat between them. They stumbled against the wall, his lips trailing to her neck, her breath hitching as his hands gripped her hips like he was afraid she'd vanish. They pulled apart, breathless, her forehead against his chest, his heartbeat thundering under her palm. "This doesn't fix everything," she said, her voice shaky but firm. "But it's a start." He nodded, his hands still on her, his eyes fierce. "I'll earn your trust, Nia. Whatever it takes." They stood there, wrapped in each other, the fireplace flickering to life behind them, a fragile hope kindling in the dark. The next morning, while Ethan and Amara played cards, Nia wandered the house, needing space to process. In a study lined with books and old records, she found a leather-bound folder on a desk, stamped with Nexus Innovations logo. Curiosity won, and she opened it, her stomach dropping as she read. It was a proposal for an AI project, software to analyze patient data for predictive care. The fine print mentioned data sharing with third parties, a potential breach of privacy that could harm the very communities she served. Her hands shook, anger flaring. This wasn't just business. It was personal, a betrayal of the values she'd shared with him. She found Ethan on the porch, the lake sparkling behind him. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, thrusting the folder at him. "You're building AI that could exploit my patient's data? After everything I told you about Southside, about trust?" His face fell, guilt flashing in his eyes. "Nia, it's not finalized. It's just a proposal." "Just a proposal?" She cut in, her voice rising. "This is people's lives, Ethan. My patients, my community. You sat there, listened to my dreams, and you're okay with this?" Amara appeared at the door, sensing the tension, but Nia didn't stop. "I thought you were different." But you're just another suit, aren't you? He stepped toward her, his voice urgent. I'm not, Nia. I'll pull the project. I'll fix it. I didn't think. That's the problem, she said, her voice breaking. You didn't think about what your world does to mine. She turned, storming inside, her heart a tangle of love and betrayal. Amara followed, her voice soft. Sis, he's trying. But his world, it's not ours. Nia nodded, her throat tight. The kiss had felt like a bridge, but the folder was a wall, and she didn't know if they could tear it down. As they packed to leave, Ethan stood at the dock, watching the lake, his shoulders slumped. She wanted to go to him, to believe he could change, but the weight of his world, his company, his secrets, was pulling her under. Back in Chicago, Lila called with news that chilled her. I'm digging into something, Lila said, her voice low. Vanessa Holt and Eleanor Brooks are up to no good. They're behind some of the leaks about you. Watch your back, Nia. The warning landed like a stone, and Nia realized the fight wasn't just about trust. It was about survival in a world that wanted her gone. Nia Carter had never been one to back down. Growing up in Detroit, she'd learned to face the world's sharp edges, teachers who doubted her, systems that overlooked her, a society quick to judge her brown skin before her brilliance. But the past few months had pushed her to the brink. Ethan Brooks, the man she'd loved as Evan, had lied about his billionaire identity, and his world, its wealth, its power, its cruelty, had nearly broken her. The viral video at the gala, the hospital's scrutiny, the anonymous threats. They'd driven her to walk away, to protect the life she'd fought so hard to build. Yet, as she sat in Lila's Chicago apartment, staring at the hacked files proving Vanessa Holt and Eleanor Brooks's betrayal, a fire reignited. Nia wasn't done. Not with Ethan, not with her dreams, and definitely not with herself. She'd spent 2 days at Lila's, piecing together the evidence. Vanessa had orchestrated the Michigan video and the AI data leak, framing Nia to push her out. Eleanor, Ethan's mother, had known, her silence a weapon as sharp as Vanessa's schemes. The emails, bank transfers, and timestamps were ironclad, a lifeline Nia hadn't expected. Lila, her best friend and a journalist with a knack for digging, grinned as Nia read the files. You've got them, Nia, Lila said, sipping coffee. Question is, what's your move? Nia's move was clear. She forwarded the files to Ethan with a single line. We need to talk. Then she packed her bag, her heart pounding with resolve. She'd run once, thinking it would save her. But running wasn't her style. She was a fighter, and this fight was for her future, her love, her truth. As she stepped into the Chicago drizzle, the city's skyline loomed, a reminder of the battle ahead. She wasn't just facing Vanessa and Eleanor. She was facing a world that wanted to define her, and she was ready to write her own story. Nia's first stop was Ethan's penthouse in Gold Coast, a glass and steel fortress that felt like another planet compared to her Southside apartment. The doorman hesitated but let her up, and she found Eleanor in the living room, a vision in a cream pantsuit, her silver hair gleaming under recessed lights. The space was cold, marble floors, abstract art, no trace of warmth. Eleanor's gray eyes narrowed as Nia entered, her laptop bag slung over her shoulder. Dr. Carter, Eleanor said, her voice dripping with condescension. I assumed you'd left Chicago. A wise choice, given the publicity. Nia's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady, setting her laptop on the glass coffee table. I'm not here to play nice, Eleanor. I know what Vanessa did. The video, the AI leak, all of it. And I know you covered for her. She opened the laptop, pulling up the emails, each one a nail in their coffin. You thought you could scare me off, make me feel small. But you picked the wrong woman. Eleanor's face paled as she scanned the screen, her composure slipping. "You're out of line," she said, but her voice wavered. "You think you can waltz into our world and belong?" "I don't need to belong," Nia shot back, leaning forward, her eyes fierce. "I'm here for Ethan, for the family we're building. You tried to tear us apart because you're afraid. Afraid I'm not the right kind of woman. Afraid I'll ruin your precious legacy. But the only thing you're protecting is your own fear." She paused, softening. "I get it. You gave up something for this life, didn't you? Love, maybe. But that's not Ethan's path, and it's not mine." Eleanor's hands trembled, a crack in her armor. "I was protecting him," she said, her voice low. "This world chews up people like you." "Then let me fight it," Nia said, her voice unwavering. "With him, not against him." The door opened and Ethan walked in, his face a mix of shock and relief. "Nia?" He crossed the room, his eyes searching hers, hope and fear warring in his expression. "You're here." "For us," she said, her throat tight. "But we do this my way. Honest, open, no more secrets." He nodded, his hand finding hers, his touch a promise. Eleanor watched them, then sighed, a rare surrender. "I underestimated you, Nia," she said, standing. "That's not a mistake I make often." She turned to Ethan. "Fix your company, and don't let her go." She left, her heels clicking, a truce forged in silence. The next week, Ethan called a press conference at Nexus Innovations' sleek headquarters in Chicago's Loop. The glass-walled auditorium buzzed with reporters, cameras flashing as Ethan took the podium, his navy suit sharp but his eyes tired, the weight of the past months etched into his face. Nia stood at the back, her simple blazer and slacks a contrast to the room's polish. Amara and Lila beside her, their presence a quiet strength. Ethan's voice was steady, commanding, but his gaze found Nia's, grounding him. "Nexus Innovations has faced lies and leaks meant to divide us," he began, his tone firm. "Vanessa Holt, a former partner, orchestrated a data breach and a smear campaign against Dr. Nia Carter, a woman whose integrity outshines this entire industry. Vanessa has been removed, and we're pursuing legal action. But this isn't just about my company, it's about the woman I love." He paused, his voice softening. "Nia Carter taught me what it means to live, not just succeed. She's my partner, my future, and I'm proud to stand with her, no matter what the world throws at us." The room erupted, questions flying, but Ethan stepped down, crossing to Nia. He took her hand, his thumb brushing her knuckles, a spark that steadied her. "Come up with me," he said, his voice low. She nodded, letting him lead her to the podium, Amara and Lila cheering softly. "I'm all in," he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. "Are you?" "Always," she replied, her heart full. The cameras flashed, but Nia stood tall, her hand in his, unafraid of the spotlight. She wasn't just Dr. Carter anymore. She was Nia, the woman who'd fought for love and won. The fallout was swift but manageable. Vanessa's schemes made headlines, her reputation crumbling as Nexus's legal team closed in. The hospital lifted Nia's scrutiny, Dr. Reed's complaints dismissed, and her patients welcomed her back, their trust unshaken. Eleanor kept her distance, sending a handwritten note. "You're stronger than I was. Don't let him forget it." It wasn't love, but it was respect, and Nia tucked it away. A small victory. 3 months later, Nia and Ethan married at Haven, the Wicker Park Cafe where they'd met. The space was transformed. Wildflowers on every table, fairy lights twinkling, the smell of coffee mingling with jasmine. Nia's gown was simple, ivory silk that flowed over her curves, her curls loose under a delicate veil. Ethan, in a charcoal suit, couldn't stop smiling, his eyes locked on her like she was the sun. Amara walked her down the aisle, Lila and Maya beamed from the front row, and Nia's parents, flown in from Detroit, wiped tears as Ethan vowed to love her through every storm, every truth. They'd refused a prenup despite his lawyer's protests. "Nia's not here for my money," Ethan said, shredding the papers, his gaze fierce. "She's here for me." Nia's vows were raw, her voice steady. "Ethan, you saw me when I felt invisible. I promised to fight for us, to keep us real, no matter what." Their kiss was a seal, his hands cupping her face, her body melting into his, the cafe erupting in cheers. Life after the wedding wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Nia passed her board certification, her clinic opening in Southside with Ethan's support, but her vision, free care for those who needed it most. She poured her first grant into scholarships for Black women in medicine, Ethan matching it quietly, his pride brighter than the funds. Amara graduated law school, her speech thanking Nia for showing her what fearless looks like. Lila broke a major story on corporate corruption, dedicating it to Nia, her ride or die. Ethan stepped back from Nexus's day-to-day, focusing on ethical tech, his piano playing a nightly ritual in their new home, a cozy brownstone, not a penthouse. They hosted family nights, Nia cooking her mom's cornbread, Ethan butchering the recipe but laughing through it, Amara and Lila arguing over board games. The tabloids still circled, but Nia let them fade, her worth rooted in the life she'd built. One evening, at a Southside community center, Nia spoke to young women, many from backgrounds like hers. The clinic's success had made her a local hero, and she stood before them, Ethan in the back, his smile quiet. "I didn't win by changing who I am," she said, her voice clear. "I won by owning it. My roots, my fight, my love. You don't need to fit their mold. Build your own, and don't let anyone tell you it's not enough." As she stepped down, Ethan pulled her into a hug, his lips brushing her temple, a soft intimacy that felt like home. "You're changing lives, Nia Carter Brooks," he whispered. "I'm just lucky to be your +1. She laughed, her heart full. "Keep up, tech boy," she teased, lacing her fingers with his. The journey hadn't been easy. Lies, leaks, a world that tried to break them, but they'd chosen each other, every day, every fight. And in the end, that was the truest victory. Thank you for joining Nia and Ethan's incredible journey. If their story of love, courage, and defying the odds touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever fought for a love the world didn't understand? Tell us your story. And don't miss more tales of unstoppable love and unbreakable spirits on our channel.